Our brains are prediction machines. Every second, they're quietly guessing what's about to happen next, what you'll see, hear, and feel a moment from now. It's not something you notice because it happens faster than awareness itself. Right now, as you listen, your brain is already predicting the next word in this sentence and the next sound that follows. That's why when something unexpected happens, like a sudden silence, your attention snaps back. This ability to predict is one of the brain's greatest tricks. It keeps you alive, efficient, and ready. But it also leads you astray more often than you'd imagine. Let's start with what neuroscientists call predictive coding. It's the idea that your brain doesn't passively receive information. It actively guesses what's out there. When you open your eyes, you don't see the world as it is. You see a blend of what's really there and what your brain expects to be there. Every sight, sound, and touch is filtered through this internal model of the world. That model is built from past experiences, memories, and learned patterns. And when reality matches your prediction, the brain relaxes. When it doesn't, it updates, or sometimes it just ignores the mismatch. In 2017, researchers at University College London used brain imaging to show this in real time. They found that sensory areas of the brain light up before a stimulus appears, almost like a rehearsal. Your visual cortex, for example, starts preparing for what it expects to see milliseconds ahead of time. That's how you can catch a ball without needing to consciously calculate its trajectory. Your brain has already predicted where it will land. But this same mechanism explains why optical illusions fool us so easily. Take the famous checker shadow illusion. Two squares that are physically the same shade of gray look completely different because your brain predicts that one is in shadow. It's trying to correct for lighting, and in doing so, it manufactures a false reality. Prediction keeps the world stable. Without it, every flicker of light or change in sound would feel chaotic. But the trade-off is that your brain sometimes clings to its expectations, even when they're wrong. Consider how this plays out in everyday life. You walk into a room expecting to see a friend, but it's a stranger wearing similar clothes. For a split second, your brain insists it's your friend. That's not a failure of eyesight. It's your predictive model overriding raw data. It also happens in conversations. You think someone's about to say one thing, and your brain starts finishing their sentence in your head. When they take the sentence in a different direction, you feel momentarily confused or amused. That's your prediction error in action. Prediction errors are the brain's way of learning. Each time reality doesn't match the forecast, the brain updates its internal model. The fewer the errors, the smoother things feel. But too few, and you stop learning. Too many, and the world becomes unpredictable, even frightening. This balance between prediction and surprise is at the core of mental health. In depression, for example, the brain's model of the future becomes pessimistic. It predicts that effort won't pay off, that pleasure won't return. Even when positive things happen, the brain discounts them because they don't fit the prediction. That's why recovery often involves retraining the brain to expect possibility again. In anxiety, the opposite happens. The brain overestimates threat and underestimates safety. It predicts danger in harmless situations. A creak in the house, a message left unread, each triggers a cascade of imagined futures. The anxious brain isn't broken. It's just over-predicting risk, trying too hard to stay safe. A fascinating study from 2021 by the University of California, Berkeley found that anxious individuals show stronger connectivity between brain regions that generate predictions and those that process fear. Their brains are literally wired to anticipate negative outcomes. That might explain why reassurance often doesn't help. It doesn't rewrite the prediction itself. Prediction also shapes memory. When you recall an event, your brain reconstructs it based on what probably happened, not what did happen. That's why eyewitness testimony can be so unreliable. In one experiment at Northwestern University, researchers showed participants a series of images, then subtly changed one. A week later, most participants confidently remembered the altered version. Their brains had rewritten the memory to fit the more likely story. Even your sense of self is built on prediction. You expect your body to feel a certain way, to move in a certain rhythm. When that prediction is violated, say you see a reflection lagging in a video call, it feels uncanny. That eerie sensation is your brain noticing a mismatch between expected and actual feedback. This predictive nature is what allows you to navigate the world efficiently. It's why you can drive a familiar route almost automatically or finish a melody before it ends. But it also means you sometimes live inside your expectations more than inside reality. Take relationships. If you've been hurt before, your brain predicts that new people will hurt you too. So it filters their behavior through that lens. A delayed reply becomes rejection. A neutral tone sounds cold. Your brain is not showing you the world. It's showing you your forecast of the world. Understanding this can be liberating. It means your thoughts and feelings are not final truths. They're predictions that can be updated. Just like the brain revises its model when a ball doesn't land where expected, you can revise your emotional expectations when life surprises you. There's a simple example from sports that illustrates this beautifully. When a baseball player faces a fastball, the ball reaches the plate in about 0.4 of a second. That's too fast for the brain to react in real time. So the batter's brain predicts where the ball will be and swings ahead of time. If the pitcher throws a curve instead, the prediction fails and the swing misses. The brain updates, slowly learning the new pattern. That's predictive processing in action, visible on the field. Now let's zoom out for a moment. The brain is about 3 pounds of tissue, yet it runs on roughly 20 watts of power, less than a dim light bulb. To save energy, it can't process every detail of incoming data, so it compresses, guesses, and fills in gaps. That's efficient, but it also means we live in a controlled hallucination, as neuroscientist Anil Seth puts it. A best guess, constantly corrected by feedback from the senses. In daily life, this guessing game shapes everything from perception to politics. When you read a news headline that confirms what you already believe, your brain rewards itself. The prediction matches the input, so it feels true. That's why misinformation spreads so easily. It fits existing mental models. Correcting it requires a prediction error big enough to force the brain to reevaluate. And that's not easy. A 2020 MIT study found that false news spreads 6 times faster on social media than true news. Not because people are careless, but because false stories often align better with what people already expect. It's prediction bias at scale. The same mechanism explains why habits are hard to break. Your brain predicts the reward before it happens. When you reach for your phone, dopamine spikes not when you get the notification, but just before. That little burst of anticipation is the prediction of pleasure. Even if the reward never comes, the pattern reinforces itself. Understanding this gives you a new kind of power. If you can change what your brain predicts, you can change how it reacts. That's the essence of cognitive behavioral therapy. It helps people test their predictions against reality again and again until the model updates. Over time, the anxious brain learns that not every silence hides bad news. The depressed brain learns that effort can lead to reward. This predictive framework is also reshaping neuroscience research. In 2022, a large-scale brain mapping project in Germany found that predictive signals flow not just from higher areas down to sensory regions, but also sideways across networks. That means prediction is not a top-down command, but a conversation between brain areas. It's a dynamic negotiation between what we expect and what we sense. You can feel this negotiation in small moments. Think of walking into a bakery. Before you even smell the bread, your brain predicts the warm, yeasty scent. When the smell arrives, you feel a brief wave of satisfaction, the prediction confirmed. But if you walked in and smelled smoke instead, you'd feel alarmed. That's the sudden jolt of a violated prediction. One of the brain's most interesting quirks is that it prefers being right over being accurate. It would rather confirm its expectations than admit surprise. That's why we resist feedback, cling to first impressions, and rationalize mistakes. It's energetically cheaper to defend the model than to rebuild it. But growth, true psychological growth, requires letting predictions fail. It means allowing the discomfort of not knowing so a better model can form. Children do this naturally. They're constantly surprised, constantly revising. Adults, less so. By middle age, most of our predictive models have hardened. That's efficient, but it can also make life feel repetitive. You can soften those models by deliberately seeking novelty. Travel, new skills, unfamiliar perspectives, all create prediction errors that stretch the brain. A 2019 study from the University of Toronto showed that people who regularly expose themselves to new experiences report higher levels of creativity and life satisfaction. Novelty literally keeps the predictive system flexible. There's also a subtle time dimension to prediction. Your brain doesn't just forecast sensory input, it predicts time itself. It expects how long things should take. When a traffic light stays red longer than usual, your sense of impatience grows. That's not just frustration, it's your temporal prediction being violated. The brain's internal clock is slightly off, and it flags the mismatch. Musicians use this property all the time. When a song delays the beat or resolves a chord later than expected, you feel tension and release. That emotional wave is nothing more than the pleasure of prediction and surprise. It's the brain's favorite dance. But sometimes, prediction errors are too strong or too frequent. In psychosis, for instance, the brain may assign too much weight to unexpected stimuli. A random sound becomes a meaningful message. An ordinary coincidence turns into a personal sign. The predictive filter that normally keeps perception grounded becomes too loose. Researchers at Yale found in 2020 that this imbalance between prediction and sensory input can explain many hallucinations and delusions. It's a reminder of how delicate this system is and how much our sense of reality depends on it. Even dreams may be a form of predictive rehearsal. At night, the brain runs simulations, testing scenarios, updating emotional models. That might be why dreams often mix fragments of memory with imagined futures. They're predictions in progress. So how can knowing all this help you? It starts with noticing your own predictions. When you feel anxious, ask, what is my brain predicting right now? When you feel disappointed, ask, what expectation just broke? By naming the prediction, you separate yourself from it. You move from being inside the story to observing the storyteller. Over time, this awareness builds metacognition, the ability to think about your own thinking. It's like stepping out of the movie for a moment and seeing the projector. You can't stop your brain from predicting, but you can influence what it predicts. And that changes everything. Imagine waking up tomorrow with the mindset that the day might surprise you in a good way. That tiny shift rewrites hundreds of micro-predictions your brain makes about effort, reward, and possibility. You start noticing opportunities you would have filtered out before. The world feels new again, not because it changed, but because your predictions did. So much of what we call perception, emotion, even personality is this dance between expectation and evidence. We're not passive observers of reality. We're active creators of it, moment by moment. And sometimes, getting it wrong is the only way to get it right. If you found this exploration of the predictive brain intriguing, make sure to subscribe to Tortoise Brain for more calm, science-based insights into how the mind really works. Because the more we understand how our brains guess the future, the better we can shape the present, and maybe predict a little less, and experience a little more. That's the quiet power of knowing how your brain predicts the future, and how, beautifully, it sometimes gets it wrong.